enough for a rebellion like the one Orwell imagined, but quite a move indeed. The world of work is changing at an unprecedented pace, and not necessarily because of decisions made within human resources departments in the corporate world, or as a result of theories elicited by experts from academia. That's why the process is so general and non-linear, and its manifestations of the most varied kind. On the one hand, the last global crisis was foundational and so fundamental that the sea change it provoked went far beyond economy and finance, markets and governments. On the other, internet, mobile and social technologies went on changing attitudes, preferences, habits and behaviors, both individual and collective, all over the world. Collaboration, transparency, sustainability are the values guiding action and decision-making of the future-minded. The natural course of life itself gave demographics an additional push into the workplace, with the inclusion of the millennials and all the in-betweens that separate them from the baby boomers. The notion of power, the narrative of work-life, professional mandates, and the expected career path, just to mention a few variables, are undergoing dramatic transformations. From the way we do, share, or buy things, to the way we organize resources and build global value chains, from how we decide where to work or live, to the rules we choose to follow or break, no matter how old. By conviction or social pressure, will, need, we are rapidly changing our area of influence, and through it, facing heavy or light resistance from context and the rest of the players. We ultimately transform the whole picture.
The world is getting smaller. We need great people.
Everybody's trying to break out and come out with that competitive edge, and where is it, and where do I find it? You've probably got somebody in there with some great ideas if you can harness it and give them the opportunity to do so.
We're looking not only at a set of talents, but we're looking at a set of core human values that will make them successful inside the company. It's hard work too.
You can have all the best strategies in the world, but without the right people, they are worthless.
Talent is half of the equation. There's a second half to the equation.
Initiative, optimism, emotional self-control,
experience,
team-minded,
integrity, awareness of your own strengths and weaknesses,
A good smile, a good disposition for people.
Wanting to be a member of a team.
and that's it.
A lone runner creator, a cohesive team, or a mob gathered incidentally, one by one or by twos, tens, or thousands, men and women of all ages change the context of life, work, science, technology, business. Thus, they change the future. As always, people work the miracle. Just ordinary people, not necessarily through grassroots movements, political organizations, or massive manifestations. Just a man or a woman can work as the triggering touch of the butterfly, provided that they feel the inner conviction to act, that fire within clamoring for self-expression, that personal need for self-realization.
The worst thing is to have somebody who is so talented standing in front of you, but who doesn't want to be part of a team and doesn't want to share those ideas.
And the problem is when you think you are great and you aren't, and we all think we are great.
It's not too difficult for me to sniff out someone who is, you know, a BS artist or someone who's, you know, really not as straight as we'd like them to be. So somebody putting on false pretenses or whatever is usually fairly transparent to someone who's been around a while.
Don't let your optimism overrun your realism.
So the journey for me was literally every day coming to work. And I was given opportunities and challenges, things to do, and lots of things to do. and I worked really hard. And you hit milestones that are obvious in your mind. Say, oh, that was a big deal. And there were some like that. But before I hit the first one, which was 10 years, I've spent 10 years working. It was just basically coming to work, solving problems, engaging in a team, having an environment, a company that allowed me to walk in as Ursula Burns, with the strengths that I had, with the weaknesses that I had, being who I am, and actually the company tried to figure out a way to make me more useful and contribute more.
Ursula Burns, Chief Executive Officer of Xerox Corporation since 2009, has been listed among the most powerful women in business. She joined the company in 1980, and, as she likes to say, her journey to the top was fairly ordinary. She went to work one day in June 30 years ago and never stopped. A Life in Xerox could be the title of her professional profile. She's part of the company's history, the company's strategies, the company's culture. Definitely she played the ball, because no matter how creative, disruptive, how open and flexible the organization, in the end, when it comes to performance, the key success factor is getting things done. How does this action plus results-oriented philosophy match with the theory of work that the new generation's underwriting?
I think most companies encourage people to think outside the box, to really be creative, be innovative, but you got to get your job done too.
And something Robert Frost said to me, not to me, but said one time, has always stuck with me, and that is, isn't it a shame that people's minds work furiously until they get to work and then their minds stop? Well, we try to have an atmosphere where people's minds keep going all the time. They can have fun, they can be creative, they're given a great deal of latitude as to how they deal with any problem that they may face.
A lot of people like to keep the best for themselves. A willingness to participate in their own artistic growth. We don't want people who arrive in our studio and say, just teach me how to dance or teach me how to sing. We want them to be involved in that.
I'm fairly analytical in my approach, and I'm a pretty quick thinker, and I'm an actor, so I more than probably even think, I am an actor. I'm willing to do things and to take chances and speak my mind and kind of figure out, what's the status quo, what's the problem we're trying to solve, and what can we do about it. So one of the strengths is that I'm kind of a doer, I'm a mover.
It's not that we are clueless, we think we are great, and that's a problem.
Today, millennials don't seem quite excited, or least responsive, to the kind of special breed factor implicit in strong corporate cultures. Though not necessarily solo players, they'd rather decide for themselves what the meaning of success is. That's why they look for employers that believe in collaboration, openness, transparency, sustainability. And they do not go unprepared to their job interviews. As potential candidates, they sift work opportunities. They make the selection. They recruit the employer they want. Gene Meister-Dixit, co-founder of the consulting firm 2020 Workplace, co-authored a recent book under the same name, compiling evidence gathered in years of research. According to the report, 16% of Fortune 500 companies have a CEO that regularly updates a blog, and the number is growing at the same pace social networking is. In this new turn of internet, social networks, and online collaboration, search engines have joined in a hyper-connected dance of content, people, meaning. A new way to establish relationships with not only customers and consumers, but also potential new hires. To tell them a little bit about the company and the industry, to develop that particular distinctive voice any brand should have to stick out from the crowd. There's even a website called Glassdoor.com, where a candidate interviewing for a particular company from the 84,000 listed can go and find out what it's like to work in a company, and what are some of the salary ranges for key jobs in the company. It takes two to tango, it's true. But it seems the employer is no longer playing the role of the leading dancer.
A couple of years ago, a great survey done by Business Week where they asked 2,000 people many questions. One was, are you in the top 10% in your organization? 90% of Americans believe that they're in the top 10%, so you can imagine.
Something that fits you, fits your values, and something that again you feel that you can really give the passion that you have to it. So those are some of the things I think.
You'll find talent all around the world, but it's not just the talented individual, it's what he or she is able to contribute creatively to a production.
I have always been very interested in and really liked people, and all kinds of people from everywhere and in all positions in life, and I've enjoyed working with them, and I enjoy formulating teams and getting people to cooperate or coalesce in a worthwhile, hopefully inspiring endeavor.
I don't want this to sound lovey-dovey or, like overly soft, but we are a team. We do understand the leadership team of our company and the teams that run, which is, now 130,000 employees, that leadership is defined not by me, it's by work groups, it's by team members, it's by problems, it's by challenges, it's by opportunities. We have different leaders all through the company.
Again, both terms of the equation are changing. People are changing, organizations are changing. In fact, it's been quite a long time since business administration became talent management. Because in the end, what is a firm? What would come out if its DNA were decoded? Openly creative and loosely fastened? Or results-oriented and heavily cultured? An avant-garde global talent network? Or a classical up or out hierarchy? All companies are nothing but people, and people are not, and never have been, resources. Recruitment, selection, job description, applicants. Usual terms in human resource processes, policies, and procedures. But maybe it's time to admit that we're in need of a change of heart. What do we mean today when we say we're searching for talent? No matter what side of the search we're on, we no longer feel that personal assets like technical aptitude or sheer knowledge make the difference. Along those lines, Lynn Heward, the former president and COO of the creative content division of Cirque du Soleil, and one of the key managers of its creative fire during much of the company's history, doesn't speak of selection or recruitment. Those terms imply a straightforward process of matching, the position to fill on the one side, the candidate's competencies on the other. No lateral thinking in the questions, no unexpected high potential admitted. Heward would rather say casting instead, because for them at the Cirque, the search for talent is not so clear-cut. They look for a person, of course, but they also look for the new ideas, the inspiration, the provocative unrest that person may bring to the team. That doesn't mean that people decisions are the result of a fickle, inconsistent process turbocharged with emotions and randomness and subjectivity.
When we're scouring the world in search of talent, we're doing more than that. We're looking for ideas and inspirations, and we're looking for talented people at the same time. The talent search process, if you want to call it, we call it casting. Okay, this is the term we use. Casting is a year-round activity.
Making great people decisions is not an art. It's not the result of an intuition. It's not a gut feeling. It's not a capability that I may have and you will never have. No, it is a craft and a discipline that can be learned and should be learned for our success.
Companies that rely 100% on psychometric testing and those kind of tools, I think are missing something. Because I think what they're going to end up with is they're going to end up with all people looking the same in their company. And what you want is diversity of thinking, diversity of feelings and action.
We try to make our people aware of the fact that we value them as people, not just as workers when they're at work. And we ask them to be themselves, to have the liberty to be themselves at work. They said, we didn't hire you because you were an automaton or a robot. We hired you because of your personality. So continue to be you at work.
Ann was probably the most impactful mentor in the last 5 years that I had. And her message to me was that was interesting. And she kept telling me, you're Ursula Burns, you're not Anne Mulcahy. And you have to learn to lead from the Ursula Burns perspective, not from the Anne Mulcahy perspective.
It's all about work-life flexibility, because to people joining companies, work is life, life is work. And they don't necessarily put a line of demarcation between the two. And their biggest goal is, how do I do both to the best of my ability? How do I live a full and happy life?
It's more like a courtship dance, quite different from the conventional process. Claudio Fernandez Arauz, the author of the book Great People Decisions and one of the most influential search executives in the world, according to Business Week, says that a vast majority of leaders and HR executives are clueless when it comes to selection and recruitment decisions. Each of them has his or her own views regarding what characteristics to look for, how to assess them, where to look for the people, which competencies, abilities, or which profile they need. He even suggests that we're in a stone age when it comes to recruiting. Nevertheless, with such a huge demand for talent all over the world, proactive leaders are becoming extremely creative about developing best practices. They're becoming aware of the twofold nature of expectations of a man or a woman at work.
I really think that our humanistic approach to our people was probably more essential than anything else, because we value them as individuals, not just as workers. We pay an enormous amount of attention to them. We grieve with them when they have some unfortunate event in their personal lives. We rejoice with them when they have something in their personal lives that is a source of joy.
The heart is important, but even more important than the heart is the soft. And by soft, I mean the ability that we have to manage ourselves and our relationship with others. What is being called emotional intelligence or emotional intelligence-based competencies.
Absolutely, because that's what gives you the creative latitude that you need. That generosity, this notion of being able to share creative ideas, or any kind of idea, but most ideas are creative, is a key to evolving into the future and being successful in the future.
It gets down a lot of times to gut instincts, and the gut instincts come into play depending on where you've been, how much experience you've had. You know, it's something that happens as you mature, as you evolve in your own career.
I'm clearly the ultimate decision maker for many, many things, and I have to be the broker and the tiebreaker. But I tell you, I can't lead all things, and so this whole idea about distributed leadership is one that we practice very well. We don't call it these fancy words. People will probably call it those fancy words now. But literally, I have teams all throughout the company that help me lead the company and help us win in the marketplace.
And one of the most interesting, I think, is something that we call the Participation Society.
Participation, collaboration, wikis, open innovation are concepts with an ever-growing range of applications and a halo of mandatory values very difficult to resist in today's business environment. Meister agrees. For her, that's really how companies are being successful, by listening to new voices from both the inside and the outside, by allowing people to participate, by opening their value chain to customers or just outsiders. Cisco has a prize for anyone who nominates a new business idea that has the potential for growing to $1 billion. Its iPrize competition is an open, global innovation contest developed to encourage collaboration among entrepreneurs. In its second edition, June 2010, out of 3,000 participants, a team of 5 university students from Mexico were the winners with the idea of a life account that gathers information about users through connected devices in the physical world and online data available in the virtual world. Quite interesting, the 4 categories in which they're looking for new business ideas: the future of work, what's next in entertainment, the connected life, new ways to learn. There are also small companies investing in participation. Threadless is a community-based t-shirt company with an ongoing open call for design submissions. If the design is voted as a great idea, the t-shirt is made and the open designer gets some of the royalties.
Companies have to open up, and they are doing this in R&D, and they really need to be doing it in human resources. We have a prediction that human resources will move from outsourcing to crowdsourcing by 2020.
You all know this, you've heard about the flattening world, et cetera, et cetera. But with the access, with the ability to actually distribute your work around the world, we have to compete on a global basis for talent.
I see the big issue, and the big challenge, I should say, maybe not an issue, is the globalization of the workforce. I mean, today, if you can get the work done, as you mentioned outsourcing and the like, but if you can get the work done in China, if you can get the work done in Eastern Europe, you can get the work done wherever, that's where you're going to do it. I mean, you're going to go to the most globally competitive environment and workforce that you can find.
Companies are becoming incredibly creative at developing new practices and best practices for generating candidates, assessing candidates, attracting candidates, developing candidates, retaining candidates, motivating candidates.
We have about 50 people in our casting department at Montreal who literally scour the world. Some people are on the road as much as 187 days a year looking for talent. They go to circus festivals, of course, but they also go to dance festivals and fringe festivals and music festivals. They go to the World Swimming Championships, the World Diving Championships, the Olympic Games, all first seeking ideas and then seeking talent.
We used to hold a corporate day, and companies would come in, not just from the United States, but from around the world. And they would talk to us about how do we hire, how do we train, how do we inspire. Well, to be honest with you, most of them were looking for some little formula that you could put on a blackboard, you know, like E equals MC squared. And it's not formulaic. It has to proceed from the heart, not the head. And it's like a mosaic where you're putting little pieces in place every day. And I think most of them concluded that executionally, they liked the idea conceptually, but executionally, it was just too big of a burden for them.
A charismatic leader, passionate entrepreneur, and a fan of people, Herb Kelleher, the founder of Southwest Airlines, can't be misunderstood. He would never say that money spent on a corporate day to spread best practices in talent management is a waste. He's just pointing out the implicit trade-off. As a walk-the-talk man, he knows there is no better strategy than execution, especially where people strategy is concerned. Multi-directional, totally dependent on the individuals involved, the informal groups and the inner tribes or their habits, usual behavior, disposition, and attitude, relationships in the workplace resist being corseted by formulas or reduced to simplified stereotypes. Gone is the time of one-size-fits-all motivation, predefined training programs, or standard career planning.
Many corporate learning departments spend most of their money on developing the big, formal, million-dollar-plus projects. Those days are gone forever. We think that more time, money, and effort is going to be spent in developing what we call peer-to-peer learning or social learning. So most of what we as working adults learn is through peers on the job, and that's the 70%. The 20% might be through a mentor or a coach that helps us along the way, and shockingly only 10% come from a formal training program. So corporate learning executives are looking at this 70-20-10 model, and you know what they're doing? They're rethinking their investment and their resources, and they're spending more on developing peer-to-peer learning platforms and less on those big formal learning programs.
Men and women at work, their individuality, and the complex patterns of sharing and collaborating they use to build a new common talent upon their collective intelligence are making the usual notion of human resources lose some of its appeal. Again, work has become a personal matter. That is to say, quoting Kelleher, that the more people will devote themselves to your cause on a voluntary basis, a willing basis, the fewer hierarchies and control mechanisms you need. doubt, this is a different world. Social networks and their associated technologies have been changing the way we do everything, either by connection or disconnection. We're changing in spite of ourselves. No matter how proactively hardwired we are, someone from anywhere in the world will manage to get in touch with us and, even without our realizing it, finally connect us to this new reality in which work and life flow in a continuum. That's why, just like Alice in Wonderland, we may wonder if we've been changed in the night. Are we the same we were when we got up this morning? We could conclude, as she did when talking to the eaglet, I almost think I can remember feeling a little different. But if I'm not the same, the next question is, who in the world am I? That's the great puzzle. Because more or less accurately, depending on our generation, we do long for things at work which are quite different from those that would have fulfilled talented people's expectations some time ago.
I think a talented 22-year-old will choose their next job based on a number of things. One, they'll want a company that they can work for that's got high integrity and high ethics. A company where they feel that they can use their skills to be creative, to be innovative, that will not stymie their incentive or motivation to move ahead.
How do I live a full and happy life while I'm contributing and meeting all my goals? So it's all about how flexible an employer is going to be with telecommuting, policies to build your life, your job around some of your life goals.
We're always treating them the same way and saying, you may have a different background, you may have a different persona, but you like to have fun too, in your own way.
Talent is half of the equation. There's a second half to the equation. We bring them to Montreal and we push them to their limits, okay, from their talent point of view, but at the same time we try to evaluate their core human values that we're seeking in Cirque du Soleil members. What are those core human values? Wanting to be a member of a team, okay? Wanting to be a member of a team. Being able to work in a team to solve creative problems. Courage to take risks.
The balance of the team together is what makes it possible for us not to mess up a whole lot, right? So, if I acted every time I felt like acting, without the person who said, well, think about this before you move, then it wouldn't be successful. And the person who said, we got to think about this, we wouldn't move. So it is about understanding strengths.
What you need to look for is competencies which are based on emotional intelligence, some of which may be relevant for some jobs at some levels and others not. But if you look at senior leaders, you typically find that leadership, the team leadership, influencing others with integrity, conflict resolution, all of these are basically based on emotional intelligence, results orientation, need for achievement. So leaders have some cognitive competencies which are very important, such as, for example, strategic orientation. But 80 to 90% of the differentiating competence between an average leader and top leaders are based on emotional intelligence. These are the soft factors that you need to check when you are making people decisions.
Richard Boyatzis, another expert in emotional intelligence and leadership, is a master at helping adults develop these emotional competencies. According to him, there are some mandatory conditions to attain that goal. You need to want to be a different person, have a good assessment of where you stand. You need someone to help you set some priorities for change and experiment with the new behaviors. And you need a partner for all of those 4 steps to go together with you as the 5th condition. Hard work, but doable.
In my case, I started on a 3-year program with GE that had 6-month rotational assignments. So it gave me an opportunity to look at a half a dozen different aspects of the business while I was still on the program. So I think things that give people the opportunity to develop, to grow, to really seek out what they're passionate about, and something that hopefully has some continuity to it. so that you don't have to be looking at a new company or a new prospect every 2 to 3 years.
I had a great set of mentors along the way, people who kept an eye out for me and who helped me mature and gave me opportunities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it was basically ordinary up to a certain point, right? I just worked every day and did my best, worked really hard. And then I got noticed. And when I got noticed, I was given more and more responsibility. So I had a lot of opportunities to extend my knowledge base, extend my reach in the company. And my job was to work really hard and actually rise to the occasion.
About 10 to 15% per year, people moving from one show to the other. So we need new performers. We bring those people into Montreal for a minimum of 16 weeks with no promise of a job. Okay, we train them. Okay, we train them in their acrobatic specialty, but then we test all of that other stuff I was talking about, like the ability to work together in a team, the willingness to take artistic risks, their generosity towards the spectator, etc. And then at the end of the 16 weeks, about 50%, between 33 and 50% of those people will be offered a job, and the other people for the next 6 months have the potential to be offered a job as well. So it's a risk for them, it's a risk for us.
Each job requires different people. Now, for a controller, you don't want someone who is very creative, unless you want him for the wrong reasons, for cooking the numbers, right? On the other hand, if you are looking, as I always like to say, if I'm looking for a neurosurgeon to operate on my brain, someone who is really obsessive and doesn't get distracted would be wonderful for that job, but he would be lousy for a creative marketing role. So, deciding what you need for really requires to understand the challenges in each case.
Don't ever neglect your people and how important they are to your company.
When you think of the workplace in just 10 years, there's actually 3 words we should all remember. Number 1, it's much more global. The growth is happening in the BRIC part of the world today. Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Companies are relocating there, and they're developing executives to take leadership positions there. The second is age diverse. If you are a healthy male and female and still working at the age of 60, if you're male, you could be working until the age of 74, and if you're female, like us, 77. That has huge implications for employers. Most notably, they have to continuously develop the skill sets, because while we may want to work, we may need to work, we may not necessarily have the right skill set to be employable. And the third word is hyper-connected.
Highly consistent with the business, absolutely associated to the position, bound to the socio-cultural environment. That's what the competencies, skills, attitude, profiles searched and offered by recruiters and candidates look like. The workplace as such is definitely expanding its boundaries. It should even change name now that disruptors, innovators, paradigm breakers, mavericks, talented people, those creative minds who can change the world are on the spot. They don't see work as a once-in-a-lifetime choice or the limited territory of a company. Younger generations aren't easily enclosed in present frameworks, and they don't seem eager to concede an inch either. Their beliefs, values, ideas, personal expectations are an integral part of their selves, together with any role they may be asked to play at work in their professional lives. Organizations are becoming aware of the fact that the incorporation of new generations to work is bringing along a deep shift in their strategies around talent, employability, inner climate. Leaders and laggards, at their own pace each, are taking adaptive actions.
Talent identification is probably the most significant thing in any creative adventure or any entrepreneurial adventure that you're going in there.
Integrity, awareness of your own strengths and weaknesses, our self-regulation, initiative, optimism, emotional self-control.
There will be more probably of flexible arrangements around work where people can work at home, where in a lot of countries, including even the U.S., that the aging workforce is become an issue where the baby boomers are leaving the workforce. So I think you're going to find people working longer in years in life instead of retiring earlier, or having some kind of part-time work arrangement where they can coach and mentor the younger workforce to help fill that gap.
Make sure your global leaders are 2020 compliant. Start with them. Make sure they have the skill sets of being agile learners, in developing global citizenship skills. Start with your leaders and make sure they're experienced in work assignments in the countries where you're going to grow. The next thing I would say is it's all about work-life flexibility, not work-life balance.
We have to continue to move the bar up because the world is getting smaller. We need great people to not only sell, not only develop, not only innovate, think from the purest sense, to engineer, to manufacture, to sell, etc., to service, to close the loop, all kinds of business processes. We need great people, and the fight for talent is going to become more and more of a challenge.
Taking expectations, personal beliefs and inclinations, expertise and passion helps build a strong, entrepreneurial, innovative, distinct culture. In a way, it cultivates, develops, strengthens the intuitive, random, subjective, right brain of the company. If well executed, this talent management strategy should also cultivate, develop, and strengthen its rational, analytic, sequential left brain.
And I find that as one of the issues I see in a lot of human resource people. They are outstanding at identifying problems and serving them up to the CEO. My inclination is to identify the problem, inform the CEO of the problem, but not put it on their desk. Let the CEO know, I'm working this thing, I'm handling it. I'm going to take things off your desk, not put issues on your desk. So I think that's that differentiation between being a problem solver versus a problem identifier is something that ought to lock into anyone's mind in human resources.
Somebody did a survey once at Southwest Airlines on such issues. You know, what does the chief executive officer think the strategy is, so forth and so on, and a lot of other questions. And he was absolutely astounded when he came back, and he said, I've never seen anything like it, because 80% of the people at Southwest Airlines answered the questions the same way you did. Well, one of them was strategy. And, you know, if it's a complex book, you're not really able to convey it effectively to people. You're not willing to, it makes it more difficult to adhere to it. So we just said, okay, we're a low fare, high frequency, primarily short haul, point-to-point carrier, and that's it.
When you make a new show, your artists will be involved in that process, not for 1 week or 2 months or 3 months. The artist will be involved in that process, usually starting a year before the opening of the show, because they are part of the creative process. We're not just telling them what to do, they're part of the creation process. So when you're building a new show, you're talking anywhere from 9 months to a year, maybe even 15 months of preparation for artists for a new show, because you're creating with them. You're not creating just for them, there's a participation.
IBM has done a wonderful example in building what they call global citizenship skills by launching a program called Corporate Service Corps, where IBM employees who've been with the company 5 years can volunteer in an emerging market, can bring their skills and work and live for a minimum of a month.
An interesting example. It shows that it's people who make the difference, can be much more than a politically correct slogan when taken seriously as a core component of business strategy. It can have a true impact beyond company boundaries.
Never forget the human in human resources.
Caring about people as human beings and not as personifications of the functions or role they fulfill. helped him transform the human resources function at GE. Along the same line, it also helped that he had started his company career in operations and manufacturing that enabled him to apply business perspective to the function. A perspective that gives those making people decisions a much deeper understanding as to what levers, what pressures, what issues, what challenges the company is facing, thus allowing them to look for and find the kind of talent the company needs to thrive. Because creativity, nonlinear thinking, irreverence, flexibility, autonomy are really valuable when they have real impact on the bottom line, when they contribute to generating greater value. When Jim Collins did his analysis of those companies who moved from good to great, that's to say, those that achieved a remarkable performance and were able to sustain it for at least 15 years, two of the foundational factors he found were having the right leader at the top and making great people decisions. In other words, have the bad people off the bus and the right people in the right seat. Conclusion? Making right people decisions is the key.
Once you are a manager, nothing is more important for your career success than making great people decisions, because everything will depend on the people you've chosen. You do everything through others. So your results, your performance, your risks, your chances of being promoted because of the successors you have developed, all of that will depend on your people decisions.
So we're looking not only at a set of talents, but we're looking at a set of core human values that will make them successful inside the company. It's hard work too.
I've always been very team-minded, even when I was small. Just to give you a tiny illustration, when I was the captain of the basketball team in high school, I tied the points record for our conference, and then I refused to shoot because I wanted to demonstrate to the team it wasn't the personal record that was significant, it was winning the game.
Personality of the leader, maturity of the team, clarity of the problem. I mean, all of those things contribute.
That's only natural for younger generations, but it will be unwise for them not to accept some advice from those who have made their way in business, in the Human Resources Department. Conati, for instance, would suggest that same youngster aim directly and exclusively to a position, a job, a company that he or she is passionate about. Or, in case he or she doesn't feel such a natural call, he would say, go abroad. Find one of those company-sponsored programs that give the candidate the possibility to work on maybe 5 or 6 different assignments over a period of 3 or 4 years. And he really means what he says. He speaks out of a deep conviction, emotional bonds that he shared with Jack Welch, the iconic former CEO of General Electric. He said, "We love to get up every day and try to make the company a better organization. We were both firm believers in people. We loved working with people."
What I love about my job, and I think what my skills worked extremely well, is that I was every bit as comfortable dealing with a union leader on the shop floor as I was the CEO of the company. So it's that human aspect. It's that ability to really relate to human beings. A lot of people work in the human resource field, and I'd say there's some that aren't quite as human as they need to be.
You always have to have a good smile and a good disposition for people. So be more accepting of people. Let yourself open for people to actually come closer to you.
Invest in people, okay? Cultivate people. Keep the passion in your people, okay? That helps sell a lot. There's nothing like a passionate salesperson or a passionate waitress, waiter. They sell your product.
Become socially responsible and tout it to your new hires. It turns out millennials are really interested in working for a company that has a set of values that's like their own.
So first step, become aware, at least of the more frequent areas of bias. As one example, perhaps, procrastination. We don't feel comfortable about changing someone. There's a sort of emotional attachment to the individual. But the real issue behind this is the opportunity cost. According to reports from different researchers, 90% of executives consider their organizations lousy at removing poor performers. Consider a soccer team that would not replace poor players.
no matter which category you are, you've got to get a basic grounding somewhere. I mean, I think there's probably very few Bill Gates and Michael Dells, but in general, I think that people have to get some kind of basic grounding, and that's where I think like a great training program would give you that, and you'll find out very quickly that, you know, gee, this isn't for me. I'm not, you know, this doesn't feel right. Coming to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and leaving at 6 o'clock at night. I need more flexibility.
Millennials are not going to wait a year for an annual performance review. Millennials want instant feedback, and mentoring through technology is one of the ways to give them that.
When I went there full time, we simply burned all the manuals. We actually did, as a symbol, and said, they're gone. We just have guidelines now. They're very simple guidelines.
It's find the talent and keep the passion of those people alive. How to keep it alive? Yeah. A lot of things. First of all, investing in training. Yes. There are small trainings and there are big trainings. We have big trainings, but there are small trainings that can be done, allowing people access to growth, personal growth, through their work. Allowing them career advancement.
As Jack Welch once in a conversation put it to me, he said, Claudio, you can have all the best strategies in the world, but without the right people, they are worthless. And that's the reason why making great people decisions is even more important than having the right strategy.
Herb Kelleher agrees. Asked about the difference between strategy and culture, he used a historical reference to answer.
Napoleon and his generals sat down together in Paris, and they decided they were going to invade Russia as part of their imperialistic strategy. That was the strategy. But then you have to get 1 million French troops to march into Russia, and it's the culture that makes the troops march.
When strong, powerful, rich individualities find the right place to unleash their potential in a receptive, nurturing organization, it is the whole that becomes more consistently creative. That's how people build competitive advantage. First, by bringing into the company what they have to give, then by letting that yeast develop to its full potential under the inviting conditions of the right corporate culture, a respectful human resources policy, under good talent management.
Everybody's trying to break out and come out with that competitive edge, and where is it, and where do I find it? And best place to find it is if you've got 300,000 employees, you've probably got somebody in there with some great ideas if you can harness it and give them the opportunity to do so.
Even if you're wrong, if you're good and fast, you can you can decide again.
Yes.
And I'm more into deciding 10 things, 8 of them being right, 2 of them being wrong, than deciding one and having that be perfect.
You have to see a career path for these people. And there are businesses where you just need people who are good and work hard, but keep them passionate about their job.
The change starts by being not reactive but proactive, looking what lies ahead. What's the strategy for the future? What are the big challenges? What are the competencies needed for that person? And checking that the person has those competencies. That's the first step.
So I always say, along with other things, never forget the human in human resources.
With that simple, absolutely obvious, but underestimated basic truth in mind, a good leader can start a profound transformation in people's strategy, and as a result, recreate heart and soul of the organization. The steps are simple, but remember that the complexity of talent management is not in the procedure. It's in the beliefs, the values, the human aspects underlying the quest and the decisions. Why is it so tough? First, it's an interpersonal process with several people involved. Besides, no matter how far human beings have come, our brain is still not very different from the brain of that primitive man whose decisions were founded basically on only one rationale. Something is moving over there and that thing is going to eat me, or I'm going to eat that thing. In fact, we're here because our ancestors, over thousands of years, made the right decision when faced with that kind of dilemma in all its possible disguises. Our brains are still somewhat hardwired that way. We like familiarity and fear the different, the unexpected, the unknown. But in these times of uncertainty, accelerated change, this survival mode operative system needs complementary capacities. It calls for those aspects of life we generally feel uneasy about: diversity, inquiry, doubt, risk, trial, failure, challenging people. It calls for those things. Men and women, whatever their age and generational reference, can give when they're invited, not compelled, to give what they have to give. Nothing more, but nothing less than pure and simple human creative power. That seed that only sprouts and blossoms under good, sound, caring talent management.